The air in the Obsidian conference room felt less like atmosphere and more like a vacuum. It was the kind of space designed to feel revolutionary, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a city that now felt alien to the man sitting at the head of the polished obsidian table. Elias Vance. At 50, Elias was a walking testament to the last 2 decades of data analysis. A human algorithm with a mind that could contextualize numbers better than any server farm. Today that skill had a price tag: his job. Elias wore a slightly worn tweed jacket, a stark contrast to the aggressive, tailored gray suit of Marcus Thorne, the newly appointed head of optimization. Marcus, barely 35, looked perpetually fresh from a luxury fitness retreat, his buzz cut precise, his posture radiating the smug confidence of a man who believed the past was merely a glitch he was destined to patch. "Elias," Marcus began, his voice a smooth, synthetic baritone that didn't so much speak as present. "Thank you for joining the final review of Project Chimera." He gestured toward a towering holographic projector centered on the table. The image shimmering above it was a minimalist logo, a stylized, interlocking set of neural pathways. As we've discussed, Project Chimera is not an upgrade. It's a total job apocalypse for anyone whose role centers on repetitive data modeling and predictive forecasting. Which, regrettably, includes yours. Elias merely nodded, his eyes fixed on the neural pathways. He'd seen its ancestors before. He'd helped build its ancestors. A few junior analysts sat nervously along the side walls, their eyes darting between Elias and Marcus. They were the future, the ones who would manage the AI, not the ones being managed out by it. Yet, even they sensed the tension, the historical clash between experience and raw computing power. "Let's be blunt, Elias," Marcus continued, pacing the length of the room. "Project Chimera processes the entire global logistics data stream in 3.4 seconds. Your best analyst, yourself, requires an hour and 20 minutes just to finalize the quarterly report. It calculates demand-side risk with a 99.8% confidence interval. You were at 96.5% last quarter. The numbers don't lie. By the end of 2030, not just your role but half the roles in this building will be obsolete. It's simply not personal. It's optimization." Marcus stopped directly in front of Elias, leaning over the table, the subtle glint in his eye signaling that, for him, it was personal. He saw Elias as an obstacle, a vestige of a slow human era. "The final replacement date for your function, Elias, is end of this fiscal quarter. You have 3 weeks to hand over your knowledge base to the machine." Elias slowly placed his hands flat on the cool obsidian. His posture was still, composed, radiating a control that seemed to baffle the younger executive. He didn't flinch. He didn't stiffen. "I understand the efficiency metrics, Marcus," Elias said, his voice quiet but carrying the stillness of someone who had seen life from too many angles. "The backtesting is flawless. The machine is excellent at predicting the repeatable past." He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. "But tell me this. What is the current protocol for the novelty detection parameter, NDP?" Marcus blinked. The name sounded foreign to him. He was expecting resignation, maybe a tired defense of human intuition. Not a technical ambush. "The what?" Marcus scoffed, recovering quickly. "The system's anomaly detection is part of its core architecture. It uses a self-optimizing deep learning model to handle deviations. We eliminated all the legacy protocols, the manual human review loops. What? Because they were inefficient. The machine handles novelty by learning what isn't normal. You're asking about legacy nonsense." Elias just gave a small, almost imperceptible shake of his head. "I see. You deleted the human failsafe. And that's where your optimism will become a catastrophe." Marcus, unwilling to be challenged in front of the junior staff, leaned in, his voice dropping to a near growl. "Listen, Elias, you think being a veteran makes you smarter than a multi-billion parameter model? You're trying to talk your way out of this with outdated jargon." "I don't think anything, Marcus," Elias replied, meeting his gaze evenly, unflinching. "I just believe in understanding why a system works, not just that it works. And so far, I'm not seeing much of that here." The tension in the room felt electric. This wasn't just about a job, it was about the fundamental value of human experience, which Marcus was openly dismissing. Elias could sense the arrogance, the dismissal that had followed him in every meeting since Marcus took over. It was the same underlying flaw he'd seen in every young, hungry executive. The belief that data was the truth and that wisdom was just slow data. Elias sat back, his eyes unfocusing, and his mind was yanked backward. 15 years ago, the company was a fraction of its current size, and Elias wasn't an analyst. He was the primary human architect of the Foundation Data System, FDS. His desk was a chaotic mountain of printed code and diagrams, a world away from the sterile hologram before him. He remembered the Aurora incident. It was a Friday evening, late, the sun already crashing down outside the city like a hammer. A new shipping partner in Southeast Asia, a tiny, overlooked regional courier, had switched its internal numbering system. It was a microscopic human error, a single digit repeated 3 times instead of 2 on a manifest. The automated systems at the time, primitive ancestors of Chimera, didn't flag it because the data format was correct, and the volume was too small to register as an anomaly. But Elias had been reviewing the week's reconciliation report. He didn't see the number, he saw the context. He saw a massive, unexpected $20 million liability hidden across a chain of seemingly low-value transactions that suddenly looked wrong. He stood at the terminal, his coffee long cold, trying to explain the anomaly to his then-manager Ava Rourke. "It's not a data error, Ava," Elias had argued. "It's a novelty event. The system is trained on predictable behavior. It assumes rational mistakes. This isn't rational. It's an anomaly that fits the system's rules, which makes it invisible to the machine, but it's disastrous in reality." Ava, a brilliant but cautious manager, had looked at the lines of green text, skeptical. "Elias, the cost-benefit analysis of investigating every gut feeling is astronomical. We have to trust the model." "The model is only as smart as the people who trained it," Elias countered, his voice steady. "And the people who trained it taught it to look for A, B, and C. They never taught it to look for X, the thing we've never seen. The cost of investigating this one anomaly is 4 hours. The cost of being wrong is losing our primary Asian partner." Elias had spent the entire night manually tracing the sequence. He used his human knowledge of the partner's historical habits, the nonverbal cues from their last video conference, and an outdated regional shipping law to find the flaw. He discovered that the repeated digit triggered a cascading legal loop in 3 different jurisdictions, creating the hidden liability. He saved the company from a massive, embarrassing loss. That night, Elias had designed the Novelty Detection Protocol, NDP. It wasn't code. It was a filter, a small but crucial human review gate built into the system. If the AI detected an outlier that still fit the mathematical profile of normalcy, the system wouldn't proceed. It would freeze and generate a code X7. Novelty event detected, human context required. That code was the AI's way of saying, "I am efficient but I am not wise. I need an adult." Marcus Thorne, in his reckless drive for optimization, had seen the X7 code pop up 20 times a year, each time requiring a senior analyst to sign off, and called it legacy inefficiency. In the documentation he wrote for Project Chimera's funding, he proudly stated, "All human-controlled latency loops, including the obsolete NDP, have been successfully terminated and replaced with self-optimizing deep learning structures." Elias knew the truth. Marcus hadn't optimized the system. He had engineered a time bomb by deleting the only piece of code that protected them from the unknown unknowns. The piece of code that was, in essence, Elias Vance. He opened his eyes, pulling his focus back to the cold, arrogant face of Marcus Thorne. "The NDP is not legacy nonsense, Marcus," Elias said, his voice low but charged with meaning. "It's the only thing protecting this company from an Aurora-level event." Marcus laughed, a short, dismissive burst. "Aurora? That was before half the people in this room were born, Elias. We're past that." He turned to the hologram, his fingers tapping a command onto the control panel. "In fact, let's stop talking and start demonstrating. Project Chimera, run a full, global 24-hour predictive model." The neural network on the hologram exploded into a shimmering, blue web of light. A female voice, smooth and utterly devoid of emotion, echoed from the speakers. "Executing global predictive model. Current confidence interval, 99.998%. The junior analysts watched, fascinated. This was the future, silent, instantaneous, and terrifyingly certain. "You see, Elias?" Marcus gestured grandly. "No latency. No coffee breaks. No gut feelings. Just pure, optimized output." Suddenly, the massive screen behind Marcus, which displayed live market data, flashed red. "Alert! Unforeseen global supply chain disruption." The room went silent. The analysts along the wall froze. "What is that?" Marcus snapped, his polished confidence cracking slightly. "Sir, a Category 5 geopolitical incident just occurred," one junior analyst stammered, frantically typing on his keyboard. A major non-WTO nation just implemented a zero-notice, temporary blockade on 3 key commodity routes. We have never seen this specific combination of variables before. The crisis was a perfect unknown. It wasn't a market crash, the AI was trained for that. It wasn't a pandemic, the AI was trained for that. It was a single, non-repeatable human political decision that shattered the basis of all predictive models. Project Chimera meanwhile began churning. The blue neural network turned a furious, flashing orange. It calculated, it assessed, and it finally generated its output. Critical action. Immediately liquidate all associated stock and redirect 90% of all liquid assets to regional high-yield bonds. Marcus visibly relaxed. See? Liquidation. It's cutting our losses. Chimera works. But Elias's eyes narrowed. He was looking not at the numbers but at the action. Wait! The junior analyst shouted. Sir, if we liquidate that stock, we violate a crucial pre-negotiated option on next quarter's futures. The penalty is 10 times the liquidation value. It would be a catastrophic loss. The calculated risk profile of holding is 98%. Immediate liquidation is mathematically optimum based on available variables. The machine is wrong, Elias stated, his voice quiet but commanding. Impossible. It has 99.9% confidence. Marcus yelled, his face paling as he began to realize the scope of the potential loss. Its confidence is based on its data, Elias countered. It doesn't have the context of the pre-negotiated option, it wasn't in the data model. And it's paralyzed by the novelty event. It's treating a once-in-a-lifetime human decision as a repeatable market event. It's making a confident, optimized, and catastrophically wrong decision. Marcus frantically tapped the hologram. Project Chimera recalculate. Factor in the option contract penalty. New variable received. Recalculating? The hologram froze. The orange web of light became a static, pulsing red. Chimera error, Codex 7. Novelty event detected, human context required. System paralysis. Marcus stared at the words, the same words he had proudly eliminated from the documentation, the legacy nonsense. He looked completely lost. The AI, his job apocalypse, had just hung a sign on itself that said, I need an adult. Elias slowly stood up. He didn't yell or posture. He just took a step into the aisle, slow and focused like the conversation had become his business now. You have 2 minutes before that automated liquidation process kicks in, Marcus, Elias said. You have to override the AI's paralysis code. Marcus was scrambling, sweat beading on his forehead. I don't have the administrative key. The key is tied to the NDP architecture. It was deemed redundant. The junior analysts were whispering now. They weren't watching the market. They were watching the standoff between the human and the machine's champion. Don't worry, Elias said, walking toward the terminal. I know the override. Marcus looked up, shocked. How? That was a highly protected legacy encryption key. Elias turned, looking Marcus dead in the eye. You deleted the code, Marcus. You didn't delete the architect. I built that system. Every encryption, every backdoor, every failsafe. This was Elias's internal affairs badge moment. He reached into his inner jacket pocket and pulled out a small, worn leather-bound notebook, not a data slate but actual paper. He had kept it for 15 years, a physical record of the Aurora incident and the hard lessons learned. Pull up the terminal for the FDS core, Elias commanded, his voice steady and unyielding. Marcus, utterly defeated, could only point a trembling finger. Elias typed swiftly, calling up the base-level command prompt. A simple, blinking black box devoid of the colorful AI interface. He ignored Project Chimera's screams for recalculation. He was going straight to the foundation. He found the dormant NDP loop. He didn't try to activate the old code. Instead, he typed in a single line. Input. Novelty factor equals 0.85. Human context, geopolitical. Non-repeatable. The line represented 15 years of watching the political landscape, 15 years of knowing when a human decision had no mathematical precedent. It was the human wisdom that Marcus, in his pursuit of pure efficiency, had eradicated. The black screen accepted the input. Then Elias turned to the paralyzed Chimera hologram. He typed one final command into the terminal. Execute. Chimera _recalculate, override, human NDP factor. The red pulsing stopped. The neural network flashed blue again, but this time it was a calm, steady blue. It was receiving the missing piece of information, the human context, It needed to process the unknown. Novelty event processed. Recalculating? The voice was back and the speed was terrifying. In less than 3 seconds, the new output flashed on the screen. Critical action. Immediately initiate a short-term leveraged hedge against the options penalty. Use existing high-yield assets as collateral. Projected recovery, 99%. The junior analysts collectively gasped. It wasn't liquidation. It was a complex, multi-layered solution that mitigated the unique threat while preserving the future contract. It was wise. Marcus Thorne stood frozen, his face pale, his empire of arrogance crumbling in real time. As the junior analyst confirmed the correct action was being executed, the door to the Obsidian conference room swung open, and the CEO, Anya Sharma, walked in. She hadn't been watching the demonstration. She had been watching the real-time crisis unfolding on her global dashboard. Anya walked past the paralyzed Marcus and stopped in front of Elias. She didn't need to ask what happened. The screens told the story, a catastrophic error averted by a single manual input. Marcus, Anya said, her voice quiet but piercing. I put you in charge of modernization, not the complete erasure of institutional memory. She looked at the code X7 on the screen. You deemed the one thing that separates catastrophic failure from recovery as obsolete. That is not optimization. That is negligence. Marcus tried to stammer a defense. But the numbers, Anya. The efficiency metrics. Efficiency is irrelevant when you expose the company to a single point of catastrophic failure. She cut him off, her gaze never leaving him. Your Project Chimera, failed the moment the world presented a variable outside its training data. And you, Marcus, failed the moment you prioritized your ego over the failsafe. Effective immediately, you are terminated. Marcus didn't argue. He turned and walked out, his strut replaced by the shuffle of a man who realized his power was an illusion. Anya turned to Elias. She reached across the table and shook his hand. Elias, thank you for designing the system that saved us from the system you didn't design. She glanced at the junior analyst. The job apocalypse is cancelled. But the job has changed. I don't need my old role back, Anya, Elias said, a faint smile touching his lips. No, she agreed. You don't. Your new title is Head of AI Ethics and Human-Machine Teaming. Your only job is to ensure every automated system we build has a human in the loop, not as a redundant check but as the essential novelty detection protocol. You will teach the machines to be efficient, but you will teach the humans to be wise. Elias nodded. He thought of the 2 guards who had tried to move a Marine, the officer who profiled a head of internal affairs, and the judge who mocked a genius. In every case, arrogance blinded the powerful to the deeper, quieter truth. As the room cleared, Elias stood by the window, watching the city that was now safe thanks to a forgotten piece of human context. Some people build the machine for efficiency. Others build the failsafe for survival. When the world presents a variable outside the code, the true value of a job is found not in the speed of its output, but in the wisdom of its input.